YouTube, what's good? Senju, back at it again with another video. So for today, I believe it's, I think we're at the appropriate time where it is now time to discuss the future of Throne and Liberty. Now, this is not meant to be a doom and gloom sort of video. This is actually meant to be informative, as well as giving you some suggestions and some thoughts, personal concerns maybe, that I've actually had with Throne and Liberty. Now, it's very clear that over the past almost 2 weeks now that you guys haven't gotten any content from me for Throne and Liberty. That is not because Throne and Liberty is garbage. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I've been real busy with life and doing family stuff, plus the holidays kicked in, and normally around this time, content in games tend to die down, which means content for creators tends to die down. Now, I'm well aware that we have had things like, just little mini updates, and there's been a lot of people spewing preparation things. However, not to discredit their content, because they are definitely spot on with a lot of this preparation stuff. Like, we have creators like Canon, Aragon, like all of these dudes they're real good creators. However, for me personally, I just don't feel like it was necessary to put out that kind of content yet, because we have no clear clarification on when we are even going to be receiving that. In most cases, the only thing that we are really going to be receiving in the month of January, if everything goes through on time, is going to be the mastery system, which we will speak about in a second. So, for the future of Throne and Liberty, what do we expect? Well, first off, let's just speak about the roadmap from KR. Now, I actually haven't spoken about this before because we never even got the roadmap for the global version, which leads me to believe that the roadmap for the global version is going to be different from the roadmap for the Korean version. That is mostly due to the fact that the roadmap for the Korean version is mainly set up around the end game, which is also set up around people that are already fully maxed out in the current version of KR, which is leagues ahead of where we are globally. The other issue is that there are a lot of people on the global version that are constantly spewing misinformation about the content that we are going to receive. They're expecting tier 2 dungeons to be dropping soon, which obviously we have some 2-star dungeons, but we don't have the tier 2 gear yet. There's a lot of things that Koreans have that we don't even have access to yet, including the new map zone, which we still haven't gotten yet. So a lot of the stuff that they are experiencing in the Korean roadmap, we don't even have the prereqs for in global yet. Now, that is not to say that we won't get it, but I can guarantee you that this Tuesday when Tico does his talk, we will most likely get a roadmap that's going to give us a clear description of what we are going to receive this year globally. And I can guarantee you that in addition to the stuff that they are getting in KR, if we even get that, there's also going to be a new roadmap pretty much depicting a lot of the stuff that they already have, but as being brand new to us, which is a huge problem. So, first off, speaking about the roadmap, I believe the key thing, probably the number one thing that I'm most excited about, well, the second to number one thing that I'm most excited about is actually the new mastery system. Now, to briefly go over this, let's just go ahead and get started. The new mastery system will be split into 4 categories. Now, keep in mind that this is actually replacing the current mastery system that we already currently have, and this will count for every single weapon. As a brief overview before I get into detail here, basically what will happen is that the current mastery system that we know and that we have been experiencing for the past couple of months will be transferred into a new mastery system that is more of a passive point system that allows you to benefit from leveling all of your weapons masteries instead of just mastering every single weapon individually and only getting points for that weapon. So, as I said, the new mastery system will be split into 4 categories. Each category will be correspondent to the following areas. Now, there will be 4 quadrants. These quadrants will have their own points, and these are pretty much named as defense, attack, support, and tactic areas. With this change, the mastery section will now be known as weapon specializations. That is right, the weapon mastery system will now be known as the weapon specializations. And with this change, the gap between the top end and the low end will either get much larger or much smaller due to playtime within the community. Now, depending on how this changes the feel of the game, I would either see this as being a huge boon or another layer of the game that most casual players would refuse to invest in due to the lack of incentive to even do such a grind like this. Now, in most cases, people will look at that and go, well, what on earth are you talking about, Senj? There is a lot of incentive. There really isn't. And that's mainly because the PvE side to Throne and Liberty is lacking severely. I think a lot of people have gotten through the honeymoon phase finally, and you're starting to really understand that when it comes to a traditional MMO, there are just things that no matter what kind of game you play, if it's labeled as an MMORPG, action, combat, tab, target, there are certain expectations that you have at the bare minimum. That doesn't mean that you cannot have a game that doesn't have certain bare bone, minimalistic things, but at the very bare bone level, there is just a foundation for MMORPG that just should not be, I guess you could say, redesigned. And there's just too many cases in Throne and Liberty where it feels like they are trying to reinvent a wheel that didn't need to be reinvented. There's an ancient saying, if it isn't broke, don't try to fix it. And Throne and Liberty is the very definition of trying to fix something that wasn't broke, which I'm not mad at, but if it very clearly doesn't actually provide any kind of benefit, or you're not getting the experience to the players that you thought it would, then you should go back. And rather than go back, they just double down. And that's not a good thing. Right now, like I said, there's very little diversity in terms of incentive to actually level a mastery system. And with this new mastery system, even though the mastery system itself, known as weapon specializations, will provide a decent boon to your endgame experience, it's just another layer of get on, grind this for today, but you're not really getting anything for it. Yes, you're getting new passive points, yada, 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 but you're not really getting anything. There is no gear to chase. There is no end game leaderboards to chase for raids, because raids aren't even in the game yet. The dungeons don't feel very rewarding because we're still at tier 1. And even if we had the highest tier of dungeons, the rewarding experience has been set up for you to go to PvP and beat the brakes off of people, which we'll get into that entire beast later on in the video. But currently right now, there's just a lack of incentive, and with the mastery being changed to weapon specializations, I don't even think the incentive to invest that kind of time would really change. However, in my opinion, this is going to be a massive change nonetheless, due to the ability to freely invest things like full defenses on crossbow and dagger, or even full defenses on spear and dagger. The class diversity will be much with this change, but I look forward to it. So realistically, in my opinion, the spear dagger, the crossbow dagger, any kind of combination that you want, I just mentioned spear dagger because those are the main ones that I play, they will benefit the most from this weapon specialization system due to the defense tree, the tactics tree, the attacks tree, and the support tree. This also adds a brand new layer of build diversity that wasn't seen before. However, again, this specific change, as grandiose as it may be, it's built on a foundation that doesn't exist, because we don't have the kind of PvE content to really support this kind of thing yet. Even when they decide to drop tier 2 gear, or, an entire new slew of dungeons, if we even get lucky to get the one-man dungeons that are supposed to be dropping in February for Koreans, I don't think that this is going to be enough of an incentive to make people want to grind every single weapon to level mastery. And that's purely because the level mastery system is just too tedious to even waste time on grinding. Most people do not want to play the game like it's a full, 8 to 5 job. So you need to really take a look at that. However, let's get into the next point of the future of Throne and Liberty. That is the raid. This is something I'm really excited about. So here is what we know so far about the raid. The raid will be a 12-man PvE only experience that will contain 3 bosses, which each one of the bosses having its own mechanics to learn and complete. It is unknown currently if the loot from the raid will be item sets or weapons, but it's safe to assume that within the current reward structure, we will see both weapons and body armor. Now, I should also mention that this is a raid, and typically when raids are introduced, especially in Eastern MMOs, they also come with an entirely new gear tier. And sometimes that new tier also ships with a new leveling system. Now, the safe bet would be for them to just drop the new tier alongside with a new season. However, time will only tell, so we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Now, something that is also very important is the reason why I'm also worried about the new loot system possibly having a new leveling system, and that is because the new raid will also launch with a checkpoint system. This means that teams will be able to sell raid carries to casuals, and because RMT still exist, it is very possible for them to do so. It also means that if the raid does come with very oppressive gear, most groups will not take the time to teach mechanics to casuals, but instead they will take the experienced groups to farm checkpoints, which will lessen the amount of overall people that intend to complete the raid from start to finish. The worst part about having checkpoints is the fact that if this raid follows the same requirements as basic raiding in the current state of the game, then you won't even be able to complete this unless you are in a guild. Which means if this raid launches with rewards that further gap the casual player base that isn't interested already in guild activities, this will also create such a vertical progression gap that it forces people to get in guilds to even get through the door. That is a huge problem, because mark my words, if that happens, if it gets to the point where this raid launches just like I just stated, and the vertical progression gap between the casual player base and the endgame player base is so large, and on top of that, people have to be in guilds to even get through the first door to get into the raid, mark my words, you will basically be shooting yourself in the foot. So whatever exists of the casual player base around April will just get deleted at that point, because people won't even bother to waste their time coming if they have to get into a guild to get into the raid, to find out that once they do it, people are just going to have such a vertical progression gap, because there is no true linear progression system in this game, that people won't even bother trying to put in the time. They already have to put in too much time for the weapon mastery. Then they have to basically play like it's a job to make it to boon stones and rift stones, and most people don't want to do all of that. Even if it is an MMO, you can just throw MMO tags on anything at this point. That's not going to change the fact that most people are not going to want to invest that kind of time into something that they know are not going to give them a true benefit. Now, with all of the negatives out of the way, here is the best part about the raid actually releasing in April. It is pinnacle PvE content. This means that this is a huge reward for a lot of in-game people that are currently just wasting time and space in arena PvP waiting for open PvP to happen. If this goes over well and has great player retention, Throne and Liberty will be on a huge path to success, and honestly, personally, regardless of the outcome, I can't wait to try it. However, in addition to all of that, the raid will also contain a normal and hard mode, which is huge because this will hopefully reward players for putting in the effort to complete the raid on the hardest difficulty. Now, tying into all of this is actually the third thing that I'm really excited about, and that's Guardian leveling. See, currently in the game, we have something known as Guardians. These are essentially, I would kind of say, if you've ever played Neo, they're essentially just your soul stones, where you're able to transform into a Guardian, or in Neo, vice versa, your yokai form. And this basically, at least in Neo, would give you a new suite of abilities that you could use while you're in your form. In Neo 1, it was called Living Weapon. In Neo 2, it's called your yokai form. Honestly, I think I much prefer the version in Neo 1 for those of you that have been playing Neo 1 and Neo 2. However, anyway, that's essentially what the Guardian system is. It's the ability to transform into a Guardian that you have unlocked through doing various activities in the game, whether it's through the Codex, or in this case, with the new Guardians that should be coming out in the Korean version, most, if not all of them, will only be able to be unlocked through the raid. So, excuse me. Essentially, what's really going on here is shortly after the raid drops, or right as the raid drops, I assume, because they haven't really put out an official release date for the Guardian leveling, but based off of what we do know about the Guardian leveling, we can very safely say that it's going to launch sometime after the raid or right alongside the raid. Here is what we know so far about the new Guardian leveling. The new Guardian leveling system will be exactly what it claims to be, honestly, a system built to enhance your current Guardians. There will be additional materials added to the game when this system launches, and these materials are purely there for you to enhance the level of your Guardians. The main method to gain these materials will be through raids. Now, they haven't specified whether or not they will be in the base raids. This means that the raids that we currently have access to, meaning that if you can go to your guild and you can do certain raids like Morokai, so forth and so on, a dentist, They haven't specified if the materials to level your guardians will be in those raids. However, the new 12-man raid that I believe is being referred to as the Bane raid will have these materials. Now, although they haven't actually specified whether or not they will be in the base raids that we already have access to, we do know again that they will be in the 12-man raid that is launching in April. So it is safe to say that the hard mode version of this raid will most likely contain the largest quantity of items needed for leveling your guardian. Something of note as well is that according to the devs, when you level your guardian, they will also gain a new look and abilities based on the level achieved, which is huge for endgame representation, honestly. This is basically just that little nudge so that when casual or new players come back to the game or even join the game, they can really look at that and say, yo, I want to get like that guy over there. How do I do that? So now, if you thought that was all, you're sadly mistaken, honestly, because along with this system, the Guardians will also receive a new passive leveling system, which per their description sounds very similar to the current Amatoy system. The basis of this system is for you to collect Guardians, and as you do so, they will contribute to a specific Guardian group, just like the Amatoy collections do currently in the game. Once you fill a section with the correct Guardians, they will also gain additional passive effects. Now, the biggest change here is that once the system launches, we will not just have the Guardian transformation itself, we will also have the new active Guardian skills that are exclusive to the Guardian chosen. However, there is a prerequisite that states in order for you to use or to even have this active skill ability available, you must also have a specific weapon active at that time. Honestly, it sounds like the specific weapon is more like a weapon ultimate, and in order for you to be able to use it, you need to have the weapon that thematically fits the Guardian that you have chosen. However, with the new raid and the Guardian leveling system coming out, it feels like a massive change is coming to the PvE side. I just wonder if the future of Throne and Liberty is going to be well once this launches, because again, what's really important here is to worry about the gap that you're creating. There is no linear progression in Throne and Liberty. It's purely play the game as a job or swipe the card, and that's a problem that really needs to be overhauled and looked at, because if you expect people again to invest time in this, you really need to make it worth people's time, and they are not going to feel like it's worth their time when they put in 10, 12, 35, 200 hours, and the guy who just got a bonus on his paycheck swipes and immediately gets way ahead of where you're at. So rather than trivialize the experience of everybody else who doesn't feel like spending money, I feel like you need to look at the monetization practice for the game and change it around, which I'll get into later on. So now that we know about the roadmap, the raid, the Guardian leveling, what else is there to look for in the future of Throne and Liberty? Well, honestly, they haven't spoken about much, which is why we're all patiently waiting for Tico to go ahead and give us his glorious speech on the 21st. However, what we can do is speculate what needs to happen and give some suggestions and some changes for the future. So for me personally, we will be taking a look at the gearing experience. So in terms of the gearing experience, we haven't heard much from the devs about the future of gear leveling experience. So in this section, it's purely going to be a prediction, my hopes, maybe some dreams for the future choices that they intend to make. Firstly, I would like for them to address the elephant in the room. This is a big elephant in the room. I swear it's spewing the elephant noises from the other side of the tundra at this point. So the current gear. Now, specifically, I want to mention the current gear here. Acquisition method and leveling experience is just bad. It's horrible. It either takes too long to level or it takes too long to get the gear. And for many people out there that I know of specifically that don't have thousands of dollars, again, to just speed run to the end game, they will and have in most cases quit the game. So how do we fix this? First, we need to do away with the auction house. Honestly, we could keep the auction house, but primarily what I want to do is do away with the auction house using premium currency to buy gear, because that is a massive, that right there, that one issue is a massive turnoff for a lot of people. When they see that you can trade gear, but then they find out that someone can swipe the card, turns them off immediately, because it eliminates all the grind from the game for a lot of people on their perspective. A person's perspective is way more important than their feeling at first look. If the perspective is bad, 9 times out of 10, they won't even stay to give you their feelings. So if you want people to stay and play your game, telling them that they don't need to spend real money or play the game like it's a job in order to simply compete with the top end is the very first step. Secondly, we need to redo the entire trade system. It is horrible. There are very few times in MMO games where I feel personally as though a problem was created in order to fuel a greedy objective. However, this is very much one of them. The current trade system, as is, should be deleted, honestly. Everyone should have base stats and traits themselves. You should be able to get rolled from T1 to T4. That's the very way that I feel about it. At the very base level, everyone should be able to have access to gear that they can roll themselves, and the traits should be able to get rolled from T1 to T4, that is tier 1 to tier 4, with the gear rolled at max traits being harder to receive, which max traits being T5. Now, in addition to that, the crafting system should be more impactful with the ability to keep rolled gear and sell it after you choose to craft on it. For example, if I receive a chest piece with T3 trait rolls, which is tier 3, and I choose to level them to tier 4, I should be able to sell those for in-game currency, not premium currency. Of course, though, the devs would wonder, how do we make money? Because that's obviously going to be a big issue if they start pretty much changing the auction house from being able to make money through premium currency. How do you make money? Obviously, you need to listen to your players. Here's how we fix this. At this point, you should understand that the way to make money is to listen to your community and not the publishers. So change the monetization to a subscription model. Remove gear advantages from arena PvP and make it a true balanced experience. Heavily, and I mean heavily, invest in your PvP system and life skilling system, and keep everything else the same, and you'll have a game that will pull players in and keep retention steady. What I mean by this, wholeheartedly, very simply, is get rid of this garbage premium currency auction house. Get rid of trying to force people to have to swipe to get additional traits on their gear, and create a roll system that keeps people coming back. Change it to a subscription model. Heavily invest in your PvE and PvP system, and really, I mean heavily invest in your PvP system because it really needs some help. Continue to add to PvE. Further invest in your life skilling so that the casual people have things to do outside of just endlessly running PvE and PvP. Social experiences are a huge bonus and boon to MMOs. That is huge. The more social experiences that people can have online, the less they're gonna want to go and touch grass. That's just a sad fact that you need to understand. If they have all the social experience online, they don't want to touch grass. That's player retention. If you want that, then you don't drive them away by telling them that they can't sit over there and have a social experience unless they swipe the card and get the end game, or unless they play the job 9 to 5 and get the end game. However, the main point that we need to talk about is unfortunately the main thing that the game is built around, and that's PvP. For the future of Throne and Liberty's PvP, I really don't know where it's going to go, but I have some very strong opinions about where it should be going. And for the very first thing, I think that's very obvious is that it needs a specific overhaul within the CC system. The CC system is bad, man. It's so bad. The CC immunity is non-existent, and the balance is so bad that every skill that can break you out of a crowd control ability is longer in cooldown than the abilities that can put you into crowd control. I don't know how that happened or who was heading the PvP team, but we got to sit them down and we got to have a talk. That can't happen again, man. So, in addition to that, arena PvP should not be affected by your gear score. It should be a base level thing that everybody can have access to because you have a ranked mode attached to that. Ranked mode is useless and it means nothing. There's no bragging rights when you can swipe your card, get the end game, and then just run over everybody. If you want a true ranked experience, then everybody needs to be at a baseline where they can fight, and it truly comes down to skill and knowledge of the game. It should be a checkmate system. Currently, people can holler till the moon is blue that it's a checkmate system. It is not a checkmate system. It is horrible because even if you're at end game and you have 4,000 gear score, combat score, whatever you want to call it, in most cases, you will get outdone by the most OP build that has the most synergies with crowd control. Hence why, yet again, Greysword has been running over people. It's why Tornado was such a problem. It's why Flash Wave is such a problem, because these abilities benefit from your ability to run over people. It's a snowball kind of build, and it shouldn't be existing. So you need to put everybody at a baseline. Gear should not play a role in PvP, in arena specifically. Everywhere else is fine. Arena with a ranked mode and a normal mode, that should be the casual place where everybody can come in for normal, and when they want to go to ranked and really test their 3v3, really test their knowledge of the game, that's where they should be able to go and do that. But currently as it is, it's a joke. And that's why. Because ranked is not based on your knowledge, it's based on your wallet, and that is horrible. Secondly, what we really need to pay attention to is making sure that for the future, when you introduce abilities in the game, you need to also make sure that you have a counter ready. If you introduce abilities that have a ridiculously amount of healing, you need to have anti-heal. There is really very little sources of anti-heal, and you're wondering why the Zerg meta is so bad right now. It's because nearly everything in the game can be out-healed. That is a problem. There is no anti-heal. There's no AoE anti-heal outside of knife throw and maybe some other things. CC is running rampant, and honestly, I feel like it is too difficult to get health. That is the huge problem. For other classes that are purely focused on DPS, it's too difficult for them to get HP because of how bad the trait system is. So it all rinds into one. But I guess that's enough of my ranting on some of these points. However, this is the future of Throne and Liberty. The future of Throne and Liberty is looking pretty good, but it's also looking kind of bleak. I'm not gonna lie to you. We have Guardian leveling, we have the raid, and later this Tuesday, we will most likely have a good Tico talk, and when that pops up, we'll go over that as well. However, in the current iteration of Throne and Liberty, this is what we have to look forward to. We have the new mastery system, we have the new raid in April, we have Guardian leveling. Even though we don't have a specific launch date, we know that it will be launching either with the new raid or sometime after the raid. And then hopefully with Tico on Tuesday, again, this will be on January the 21st, we will probably, at least hopefully, get some kind of inkling or some kind of notion to them actually acknowledging that they're working on PvP and the gearing experience, because right now it's not looking good. It's looking like if the raid drops and the Guardian leveling drops and they drop a whole lot of new stuff and people have access to tier 2 gear, and the game currently goes on the way that it is because they're listening to the publishers instead of the players, Throne and Liberty might be sinking very quick, and it may not be looking too good. So I have high hopes for the future of Throne and Liberty. I do. I genuinely enjoy the game. But like I said, it ain't looking too good, but it's also looking very bright. It's a 50-50. We just got to see where it's going. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.